This is Lois Whaley for Women Today and Yesterday. Today we have a special treat. My guest is Courtney Kessel, who works at the Dairy Barn Arts Center. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you for having me.
And just quite recently, I went to see the current show, which is called Athens on Paper, I believe, and it will be on until June 11th.
Correct.
So Courtney was the person who set up the exhibit, basically, because that's what you do.
Yes, it is. I'm the exhibitions coordinator at the Dairy Barn.
Yes.
Doing just about one full year of working there doing that. So.
Oh, I see. Okay. So where were you before then?
Oh, well, directly before that, I just finished graduate school at Ohio University.
Oh, okay. So you were right here in town.
I was here in town. I was fortunate enough to stay in town.
Yes.
I do like the community.
Well, that's very nice. So when did you initially come to Athens?
It would have been 2009.
2009.
It's a 3-year program.
5 years.
Yep. Going on 5 years.
Right. Well, one of the things that we're going to see is because besides working at the Dairy Barn Arts Center, Courtney is an artist herself who does performance art. And she currently has an item in an exhibition where?
It's in Florence, Italy.
In Florence.
Yes.
Well, that's practically invented the arts in Florence, didn't they?
Yeah, I wish I could go and see it. Yeah, it'd be a lovely show to see. So.
I see. And we do have a picture here from the book that was made.
The catalog, yeah.
Right, showing Courtney Kessel's work. And here's something that's on the teeter-totter, is that right?
Yep.
Yes.
It's a piece called In Balance With.
In Balance With, okay. And it shows a teeter-totter, and who's the young lady on the other end?
That's my daughter, Chloe, and at the time of that incarnation of that performance, she was probably 5. And we've been performing this piece about once a year, every year since then.
Oh.
And the items, it's almost, it starts off as an empty seesaw, and we both get on, and I'm clearly heavier, and so she stays on, and then I start adding items of our lives on her end of the seesaw. I bungee cord things on there little by little, and then I get to the other side and test it, and I'm still heavier until there's this big mound of stuff on her side.
Yes.
And we reach this balance, and then we sort of stay on balance until she's ready to get down, and then the performance is over.
Let's take another look at that. Up here is the seesaw where she's on it, and you haven't even gotten on yet, right?
Well, it's pretty empty at that point.
Yes. And then here you are. You're starting to put some things to help Chloe get more power, right?
Yeah.
And then finally, here you're in the balance.
Yeah. And she's occupied in reading a book in that portion of the performance, and she kind of plays. The first crate has items that she selects, that she kind of curates, her toys, things that she's interested in at that current moment in her life, and she kind of hangs out there until she's kind of ready to move on, and it tends to be about a half-hour performance all in all, from the beginning to the end.
Okay.
And so she indicates in some way or another that she's done and ready to move on. And
it's time to go. I see her giving us a big smile. Chloe is actually sitting nearby here, and so she's watching us do the show. And these are books that mean something in your life or her life.
They really are. Those change also. Everything, it's kind of a still. It's really like a self-portrait or a still in our lives together. So every item that's on there, it changes. Sometimes there's a violin, sometimes there's a bicycle. This one has roller skates. And so the books are almost a narrative. I feel like they kind of tell a story of what my thoughts are, what I'm thinking about, what I'm reading about, what I would like to be reading if I had more time,
Right.
that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Well, that's really marvelous, and I think later on we're going to try to show sort of the current one that you will be doing soon.
Yeah, we are fortunate enough to have been asked to be a part of a show called New Maternalisms in Santiago, Chile. And we leave in about a month, almost less than a month now. And there's, I think, 4 artists that are not Chilean that will be performing down there. So it's at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Santiago.
Oh,
So
my goodness.
we're thrilled at the opportunity, and Chloe will be her first, overseas trip,
So,
passport and all, yeah. So it'll be lovely.
well, that's wonderful. Once the idea matured, in your mind and you
Yeah.
were able to do it,
Yeah.
then we were just doing a little fixing here.
Try the other side.
I think it should be on this side, simply because we will be talking more, to each other. So let's see, maybe you
How's
can
that?
put it up a little higher. Maybe that's what we need. It's a little higher.
Is that
Well,
better?
Okay, let's give it another try.
Okay. Do we need to start over? Or is this
No,
okay?
just continue on.
Okay.
So you say you're actually going to be doing this performance
Yeah.
in Santiago, Chile.
Yes. So they're actually making the seesaw for me that I, sent down the drawings and everything like that. So I don't have to ship that, but we will be
Oh.
bringing down some of our, items.
Sure.
But it also take on sort of a different kind of iteration, which I don't know how it's going to manifest. Because it's going to be Chloe and I in Santiago, Chile. It's not going to be Chloe and I, in a gallery in the States where, or in Athens. So it'll be its own sort of chapter, we'll
Yes.
say. Yeah.
But they will provide the teeter-totter, right?
Yes, they're going to build that there, so we don't have to bring that.
You don't have to bring that. That would be a little difficult to
Yeah.
get onto the plane, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
16-foot plank of yellow pine would be
Did
very
they
difficult.
do that in Italy as well? Did they provide the teeter-totter?
They actually have the video that you're going to show on your show
Oh, I see.
later, whenever
Okay.
you put that in. So yeah, that's the piece. So it's kind of nice to have a video documentation
Right.
of the performance, so it can
Yes.
go very inexpensively overseas and be in other places.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Well, as I said earlier, Courtney works at the Dairy Barn Arts Center. And of course, I've lived here in Athens now for 50 years, actually. 50 years this year. We came in 1964
So
in the fall, so it'll be 50 years in a couple months, I guess I should
right,
say.
right. And you saw the Dairy Barn really start to
Yes,
become the Dairy Barn
I
Arts
saw that,
Center,
yes.
where it was a dairy
I-
barn all along.
I think we can see this picture, Tyler. Yes, it shows the performance, well,
That's Athens on
this
paper.
is, yes, this picture here up at the top, this very nice little postcard, it shows the part of the current show, doesn't it?
Yeah,
actually?
that piece is actually Rachel Clark's
Rachel
work.
Clark.
Yeah, so I cut the dairy barn shape out of paper and then superimposed it on top of 6 different artists'
Yes.
works. So that one particular one is Rachel Clark's, and she's a local artist.
A local artist and a woman.
And a woman, and she's a part-time faculty at OU.
I see.
Lancaster, I believe.
Right.
Wonderful
Well,
artist.
just by chance, perhaps, we have a woman featured here on this postcard, but there are 6 different ones in the packet,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And of course, they're not all by women.
No, let's see. It's Rachel, Izada Izada Bush, who is Kenner Bush's mother.
Oh, yes, I
Um,
remember that one.
And that's a beautiful piece. And that's sort of the black and white art worker. And these are all works that I selected based on how it would kind of look behind, you know, the cutout of the
Yes.
barn. But there are also a variety of colors. Lintha Eiler, local photographer. She's the sort of purple card. Abner Jonas is the green
Oh,
one,
yes, I
and
remember
then
him.
Art Werger is the blue.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I've met Art, too,
Oh, yeah,
so,
okay.
you know, like I say, having been here 50 years, I've met a lot of folks. I don't know that I ever met Kenner Bush's mother, but I
Isaiah.
remember Kenner quite well.
Yeah.
And
He's in the show.
He's in the
He's in
show,
the show also.
and he frequently is in one of the Dairy Barn
Dairy
shows.
Barn, yeah, he's a wonderful supporter of the Dairy Barn.
Right, right. And
He's also a really good photographer, so it just so
Yes.
happens to be a win-win situation.
Yes, definitely. I got one of his photographs that was displayed a couple of years ago. I remember it was a winter scene, I believe, but
Yeah.
it really struck me. And
Yeah, you kind of
So-
can't go wrong with a Kenner Bush.
yes. But then also Ora Anderson, this video that was done of Ora. I remember Ora quite well. He was active in the Audubon Society, and when it was active here, we met on several occasions at his farm, you know. And I remember, I can't remember whether I ever really knew Harriet Anderson.
yeah.
She's been gone a long time.
Well, the stories that I hear, and Nancy Crow just was telling a wonderful story about how, you know, Quilt National came to be at the barn, and how, you know, there was a group of women that really just were so frustrated with not having anywhere to show their quilts. And she was really young at the time, Nancy Crow. And
Yes.
so, and Harriet was a little bit older and a little bit more mature and had been a little bit more worldly out in the world. And she basically told Harriet her idea, and Harriet just made it happen. And that's how Quilt National was born. And that was a really wonderful story that she told us yesterday. We were out at
Yes.
Nancy Crow's farm.
Right. Well, I remember the Crows.
You do? Okay.
I think I remember her husband better. He worked in an environment somehow.
Okay.
And
Just met him yesterday.
I was quite active on the environment, have been over the years, and I knew him better than I knew her.
Okay.
But I remember when they lived up on 2nd Street, I believe. It was
Yeah.
a long time
And
ago.
she said it's 35 years that they've been out of Athens.
Is that right?
So-
That long? My goodness. I think they moved to Lancaster. I don't know if they're still there.
They are.
They
yeah.
are,
Mhm.
okay.
Right outside.
Yes, well, it's a wonderful story how the Dairy Barn got started as an arts center.
Yeah.
And of course, this year is particularly important for the building itself.
That's right. We turned 100.
100.
Yeah, so we had our first exhibition was It's All About the Barn,
Uh-huh.
and that opened in January, and was only a month-long show, but it talked about the history of that particular building, and then you know, I tried to become a historian at the same time as an exhibitions coordinator. And with the wonderful help of all the staff at the Dairy Barn doing their own particular parts of research,
Yes.
came together a really nice show. We got a really wonderful feedback. Harriet and Ora's daughters came and saw the show, and
Yes.
they thought it was really wonderful, and they thought it was really interesting to hear Ora's voice, because I did an installation, well, I had a video of Ora telling the story of how the Dairy Barn Art Center came to be.
Oh, good. Great.
And it's on YouTube, actually, but it's in three parts. So I made it one video, and it was sitting on a couple bales of hay, and there was a little hay bale seating area. And Susie had said, you know, it's so nice to hear Dad's voice. You know, it's been a long time since I've heard that or something. So it was cute.
Right, and my goodness, you know, it was really a real barn with prize-winning
Yeah.
Holstein cows.
Dairy, yep. And we had Lotta Faye, and she was the, I think it was like 30,000 pounds of milk was that award-winning
Yes,
number. So
there were award-winning cows, and that was, of course, part of the Athens Mental Health Center
right.
at a time when inmates were expected to help with the farming.
Yeah, it was part of the sort of wellness program was health and wellness through work.
Yes.
And so that was some of the work that they did was taking care of the cows
Yes.
and self-sufficient. I mean, that whole facility was self-sustained.
Well, there were well
pretty
over
amazing.
1,000 inmates at one time there,
Yeah.
and so they needed milk. And
Yep.
I personally feel that it was a very bad decision, a court decision, which finally decided that you couldn't use people's
Right.
work,
Right. To help, yeah.
unpaid work, shall we
Right.
say.
Right.
And so the inmates couldn't do the work anymore.
Yeah, I think that ended up, yeah, and then I think shortly thereafter is when it all went under.
Yeah, well, the Ridges was still an active mental health center into the 1980s,
Yeah,
but
was
the dairy itself, of course, had
76.
been,
yeah, it was the early 70s that the dairy barn started to,
right, they had to stop the use of it as a dairy barn.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, there were at one time 3 large barns
right, on that property.
on that property.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they had plenty of milk.
Yeah, yeah,
Back in 1914 would have been the,
that was when the building, yeah.
that building was built.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was all in the exhibition. I had all of that sort of as the history of the the dairy barn, and then it got into our history as an art center.
Yes.
So, yeah, and there were, it was interactive with slideshows and,
Yes.
people who'd never touched a slideshow projector in their lives before playing with a slideshow and, video projection and of course the video of Ora Anderson speaking. So there was quite a variety of stuff in there to explore.
Yes, well, as I say, Ora was a wonderful person, and I noticed when I was visiting upstairs on the second floor there and went in to talk to you that there was a painting by Harriet Anderson in the hall.
Yeah, we have a couple of her pieces in the dairy barn. Those beautiful. I think they're called nature collages, and that's where she does. She was doing plaster and the leaves, and that's how she got the texture in there, and then just doing these big color blocks of.
Well, Courtney, long ago I grew up out west, and the place where my brother still lives, an irrigated ranch in Fallon, Nevada, which is right on US 50.
Wow.
I mean, I could get in the car and go
go.
out there, go straight to the place. But one of the things I noticed when I was a girl growing up there, after the canals were dry in the wintertime, of course there wouldn't be any use for the irrigation in the wintertime, so the canals were dry. And I was walking in one of those dry canals and saw skeleton leaves. And the next place I saw skeleton leaves was in Harriet Anderson's artwork.
Oh wow, that's a nice.
Because the green part and the soft part wears away, but the skeleton of the leaf itself
Right, stays in there.
stays, and she used that quite extensively in some of her artwork.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Yeah, Harriet Anderson, with her husband Ora, responsible on the initiative of Nancy Crow
Yeah.
for setting up the dairy barn
Yeah.
as an arts center. And of course, it took quite a while to get it all cleaned out and all that
Yes.
sort of thing.
That was also in the show. lots of pictures of people shoveling
Shoveling.
manure. Yeah,
Yes, I
lots
bet.
and lots of volunteers, and the dairy barn still runs on lots of volunteers and help. And,
Yes.
yeah.
The
So
volunteers are very necessary, but most volunteers don't find themselves shoveling
No.
manure.
no, just hanging artwork and
Yes.
vacuuming and stuff like
right.
that. It's
Nowadays,
pretty easy.
you'd never guess that there was a cow ever in the place.
Right. No, you
Yes.
wouldn't.
But that beautiful big building is still there and makes such wonderful exhibition space.
Yeah, thank you. It is a really wonderful exhibition space.
Yes.
We have the next show coming up is Art We Use, which, is this guy here. If you want to
Oh,
put that on, if
yes.
you want to put that on
Okay. Art we use. My goodness, it's going to have all hats, quilts, toys, tables, cabinets, baskets, all sorts of things, bowls. And how many exhibitors are there?
There
for
are
that?
70,
70
in this show,
exhibitors.
and then they are coming from all over. Let's see, I think there were 30 states and 3 countries. So, and it was a juried show by 3 jurors that selected this group of art. So,
Marvelous.
yeah, it's going to be an interesting show. Lots of pedestals, lots of stuff. Lots of,
Yes.
yeah. And I mean, we're talking, I'm looking at the, making the gallery tags right now, in my office. And, we're talking ranges from $60 items to $80,000 items. So it's a really,
$80,000
Yeah.
item. That
Yeah.
sounds like a 17th century huge cabinet or something.
just a really, really ornate seed bead oriental rug.
Oh,
one of
really?
the
Okay.
patterned rug, but out of beads.
Out of
tiny,
beads.
Those little tiny glass beads.
My goodness.
So I think, I haven't seen it yet, but I think that
And
probably
this
took
is
a really
something
long
that
time.
will be on the wall.
I don't know. The way that it was photographed, it looked like it's a rug. So it's meant to be not walked on,
Yes,
but it's meant to
obviously.
be displayed.
On the floor.
Yeah, it looks kind of like a runner. It's kind of longer. So we'll see where it ends up going.
Very interesting.
That's what that ends up being sort of my job, is laying out the gallery and how the works kind of communicate with one another. Athens on paper, the way that, there's a Donald Roberts next to the Izada bush, or there's, Jacob Kessler, who just graduated from OU grad school, doing, this wonderful video piece right next to a Karen Nolf, professor emeritus of Ohio University in photography. Or anyway, I'm not sure where she was a professor. But next to one another, having these communications, these conversations where their works are talking to one another, where they probably would never really be next to one another. So
Right.
That's why.
Especially if one artist lives in Pittsburgh and one lives in Chicago.
Right. It'd be a unlikely event that they would be together anywhere in
Right.
any other circumstance.
Well, those two that I mentioned, Pittsburgh and Chicago, are actually 2 women artists.
Yep.
And they're on the far wall there.
Yeah, the one is the video that's on the floor by Haley Ebersole. And then the other artist that you liked was Connie Wolf, and she was on the far wall with the sort of the little seeds, or the money plant looking leaves
yes.
made out of paper and seed.
Very
beads.
interesting. One has to wonder what it'll look like when it comes down, because
Yeah.
it's actually in the wall, isn't it?
Yeah.
These many, 100, 200?
Yeah, there's quite a few. I don't know how many, and she had more too.
She had more.
that she had made. Yeah, so she makes the pieces in her studio, and they're just a delicate wire, and then that little medallion of paper with little beads inside. So it's sandwiched in the side, so it looks like a seed.
So there's a bead inside each one of the little...
Yeah, like a little grouping of beads,
medallions.
like a bead pod or something. Yeah, it's really beautiful. But they sort of quiver in the wind, like as you walk by them. And she came and she really responded to the space and the piece next to hers, which is Marilyn Poppelmeyer's piece. And she, they had never been outside of her studio, so it was interesting kind of
Right, really.
site-specific.
And the thing that also makes it wonderful is that the the shadows.
Yeah.
The shadows
Yeah.
on the wall
Yeah.
of the medallions moving and so on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's really fantastic.
Yeah. I agree. It's a really nice piece.
And you say, but all of these artists that are on display have a connection with Athens.
Correct.
They either live here in Athens or they have been here in Athens perhaps as students.
Well, lived, worked, or studied is our sort of the guiding principle behind both Athens Paints, which was in February, and Athens on Paper. So having been here for some amount of time, having some sort of noteworthy practice or, artwork. There was a really wonderful selection of artists in this area that keep on regenerating.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And of course, they've had the inspiration of the Dairy Barn Arts Center to help them.
Hopefully they feel that way. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
We hope to have that. Yeah.
You mentioned that next to Connie Wolf's medallion art, money tree
Yeah.
thing, which is rather large. It's maybe 6 feet by, or
Oh yeah, it's about
6
the
feet
whole
high.
height. Yeah, it's almost the whole height.
and maybe 8 feet long or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
It's we're talking something rather
sizable.
large.
Yeah.
But next to it is an artwork by a current member of the art.
Yes, that's
Department.
Marilyn Poppelmeyer's, and it was, she's a current Ohio University sculpture faculty,
Sculpture faculty.
and she does these. They're very. She's responding to the site in many ways. She's responding to her materials, and the site, and she worked on that throughout the week leading up to the opening of the exhibition. So. Standing all the way at the far end of the gallery, which is the far end of that very long barn, looking at that piece all the way at the end, and
Right.
seeing how it looks and responds, and
Because
moving things
it's
around.
quite large, too.
And it's very large, yeah, and it's all paper. It's drawings on paper,
Of charcoal.
Yeah, charcoal drawings on paper, and then a very delicate sort of line grid,
Right.
pencil line grid on the background. So.
And we've only spoken at length about 2 of the artworks. And
Yeah.
how many are there total in the show, would
Well,
you say?
let's see. There's, I think, just over 30 artists in Athens on Paper. And
30
so
artists, and
I think
some of them have more than one.
they do. Some have, a couple pieces in there. One has, like 5 pieces, but it was sort of a series, and it felt like one work in a
Sure.
way. It felt
Right.
it all went together. Others were sort of like different examples of, the artist's work that that the co-curators also thought was notable. That was co-curated by Gary Pettigrew and Martha Luffman.
I see.
And I put forward a lot of the younger artists' names, just sort of thinking that I was very much interested, knowing that there would be a lot of photography and printmaking, trying to expand the idea of works on paper to be sculpture and performance. There was a human Xerox project, a human Xerox machine person project at the opening, Kayla Skill and Broccoli. And the sort of remnants of her performance are on display right now. There's video, projection, video performance, and then video projection on paper. So trying to get this other, broadening the idea of on paper, what that
right.
would mean. So.
Yes, and with today's modern technology, as you say, use of Xerox and that sort of thing, I think perhaps the most startling piece is a large piece of paper. It's she isn't doing it right there, but
Yeah.
there is a print which goes continually, isn't that right?
Is that the Haley's piece on the floor?
Yes.
Is that true? Yeah, she does. It's a video that's projected from the ceiling onto the floor, and what happens is you just see this sort of sea of whiteness, and then all of a sudden there's a tiny little hole that is pierced through the paper, and then all of a sudden you don't really know what's happening until the hole gets bigger and bigger, and you start to see fingers emerging. And she's slowly peeling back the whole of this paper. slowly, slowly, very methodically, and then her head sort of emerges, and
Yeah.
sort of like a birthing of sorts through this paper membrane that's kind of skin-like, and and then it just repeats that sort of, and then it returns to that ocean of whiteness. On
About
paper.
how long is that?
I think the loop is, I feel like it's maybe somewhere between 20 minutes,
About 20 minutes. you
17
think?
and 20 minutes, I
17.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, I was there long enough. I went on the very nice tour that you were the host for last week, and told us about all the different, we went and saw all the different parts.
Yeah.
And
It's a really great show.
but that was the most startling, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Well, there's a wonderful piece. I don't know if you noticed that, that video on the floor, and then directly up from it, the drawing, the
Yeah.
big white
There's
piece
a
of paper.
screen, sort of like, yes.
Yeah, and she had projected the video onto the paper and then traced that sort of orifice or that hole that sort of moves
Gets bigger
in
and
the
bigger and
performance.
bigger, yeah.
Yeah, and she delicately traces that and overlapping where the hole overlaps in the video, on the paper is where it gets darker and darker. And it's just this
Right.
really delicate but beautiful.
One of the other very interesting things that you notice right away, because it's in that platform, when you enter the gallery, and you immediately see this, what the heck is that?
The dining room set.
The dining room.
That's by Melissa Haviland, who is also current OU faculty. She's a printmaking faculty.
I see.
And this was a brand new piece that I said, go for it. She's never done anything like it before, and when she described it, I just said, hey, I trust you'll be able to make that work. And it's a cast dining room set, and it's really humorously floppy and just all sorts of wrong.
You can, when you look at it, when you say dining, you say, oh yes, that is a table with with the legs going on,
like
and it's a
strong.
fairly large piece.
Yeah, it is.
With a chair, and I believe you said that she's working on more chairs.
Yep, that's what I've heard. So,
But these are very different sorts of things, a different perspective. I wanted to follow that up with something totally different here. But again, this question of the perspective that the artist does. This picture, it's a pastel, as you can see, and it shows a mountain and some trees.
yeah.
I'll put it down here and hope it shows up there. Yeah, there it is. This was done by my aunt when she was living in California, almost 100 years ago.
Oh my.
Now, probably done in the 1920s, but as you can see, the trees here, and there's a mountain there. Well, I had seen this in my aunt's home, this pastel, over the years, and I thought, well, it's a mountain. It's a mountain.
Right.
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 But one time I was visiting at the place where she lived when she was a young girl, and it was right at sunset time. And I looked to the west, and I saw this mountain. This is a real mountain. This is Mount Diablo
Oh wow.
in California, which is near Walnut Creek, just over the hills from Berkeley and Oakland. And it was absolutely framed against the sunset.
Wow.
That's why I recognized the profile of the mountain itself,
That's pretty.
against the sunset sky. And I thought, wow,
Yeah.
that's a perspective, a certain perspective, and it turned out to be a real place,
Yeah.
as it was.
Yeah.
But then I want to show you this other picture here. I have no claim to be an artist, but I do like to take pictures. And this is a picture that I took in California 10 years ago, I guess. from the top of Mount Diablo
Oh, wow.
at sunset time.
You were on Mount Diablo?
I was on Mount Diablo,
Looking the other way.
looking east,
Looking east. So
looking
looking
east
where this was
toward the place where this
drawn.
was drawn.
Ah, that's
And I took this picture, and if you notice it, you know, it looks, what the heck is it? Well, this is the wall, which sort of protects people who are visitors there from falling down the mountain.
sure.
And this is called the Devil's Elbow.
Okay.
It's a red outcropping.
Okay.
And Mount Diablo, Diablo is the Spanish word for devil.
Double. Uh-huh.
But Mount Diablo is important in map making in California because things in, I guess for the most part to the south, but maybe also to the north, are really counted from Mount Diablo. It's sort of like up at one corner
I see.
of how they have set out the maps of California in that area. And here, that's the shadow. The shadow, which is looking to the east,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
It's the perspective. And it just was so striking, I had to have a
Yeah.
picture of it.
That's really wild to have these two in communication.
Yes,
coming
right.
from
It was
east and west.
something that I really enjoyed seeing and making the connection between two things so different.
Yeah.
But so
And
much
hundreds-
depends on perspective,
Yeah.
the way you look at things and the way that things strike you.
It's true in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. So
Physically and metaphysically.
that's one of the reasons why Haley
Ebersol.
Eversol's unusual perspective
Uh-huh.
of herself being photographed as she gets out of the paper,
Yeah.
makes the larger and larger hole and so on. Really, really very memorable.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And so, of course, how long is the show going to be up, Athens on Paper?
The show is up until June 11th.
June 11th,
And you can always check on our website, www.dairybarn.org,
right?
and get any information for times that,
Right.
check before you go, check for
Yes.
time. But,
And of course, the dairy barn needs to be supported, so if you go during the week, usually, there's an entrance fee unless you're a member of the dairy barn.
right, which we also have a new membership level. We have an artist member level.
Oh, I see.
And it's for this year only because we're celebrating our 35th year anniversary. So it's $35 to be an artist member, and that allows you or offers you a number of opportunities within the barn to use the barn for your own meetings, or if you were having, watercolor meeting, or a crochet meeting, or if you wanted to come and fire a bunch of your ceramic work. So yeah.
Well, that's
Workshops and
very
things like that.
interesting. But there's also a free time to go. It's Thursday evening, is that correct?
Yep, Thursday evenings. When we have a sponsor, we try to have it be free and open to the public. This Thursday, we have Ohio University Credit Union, so from 5 to 7.
5 to 7 on
5
Thursday.
to 8, it's open
5 to 8
until
on
8.
on
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yep,
Because actually Thursday is the day when you are open late.
yeah. We stay
Generally
open
speaking, it's,
till 8,
is
yeah.
it
12
noon?
to 8, yeah.
12 to 8 on Thursday.
Yes,
And you're closed on Mondays,
we're closed on Mondays. Yeah.
but you're open on the weekend. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah. Saturdays.
So, so the basic hours are like 12,
Noon to 5.
noon to 5.
Yeah, 12 to 5, and then,
Except for Monday when you're closed.
yeah.
Uh,
And
the-
Sunday, I think it's 1 to 5, so.
1 to 5
Yeah.
on Sunday. But people need to, if they haven't been to the dairy barn, they need to go out and
Yeah.
maybe see Athens on paper
Yeah, before it comes down, and then
before it comes down June 11th,
yep, and then our next show is June 20th.
beginning
Art We
June
Use.
20th.
Yeah, Art We Use is June 20th, and that's our summer show, so it'll be up all summer long.
All
Come
summer
by,
long.
bring your family, bring your friends.
Oh, great.
And
right.
then in the fall, we have Quilt Revolution. So
Quilt Revolution.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I've seen it written with an R in parentheses,
Yes.
so it's evolution.
yeah, so it's
It's-
talking about the evolution or the revolution of the art quilt. Mm-hmm. So this show is featuring the jurors of Quilt National from 1979 on.
Wow.
So what we asked these jurors, artists, to do was to submit a quilt from 1979, the year Quilt National started, and a current quilt, and then a quilt from the year that they jurred. So, so each artist will have 3 quilts.
3 quilts.
So
Wonderful.
they'll all be displayed in chronological order all together, so you can sort of see that evolution.
I see. So the 1979 people will be together.
No, I
No.
mean, it'll be in chronological order, each artist's work. So you'll see
All right.
their own personal evolution as
Yes.
their artwork,
Three
evolves
different
through.
quilts.
Yes.
All right.
yeah.
Wow.
And that'll be in the fall.
In the fall.
So that's, September
After
20th.
Labor Day,
Yes.
starts
September
at-
20th.
September 20th.
Yeah, to November, right before Thanksgiving. So,
So this is kind of unusual. I mean,
This
we
is-
have Quilt National every
Yeah.
other year.
yep.
And
Which
it
will be
was-
15. It'll be 13 and 15.
Yeah. So there was Quilt National last year.
Yes.
But this year, we're having this very special in celebration of the 100th year of the Dairy Barn and the 35th year,
Yep. Of the
Of
Arts
the Arts Center.
Center.
So it will be a very special quilt show.
Yeah, we hope to, it's one of a kind, so it'll be, we'll see how that, I think it's going to be a wonderful show to see that sort of evolution of the,
Is it,
the art quilt.
is it going to go on tour?
Not yet. I mean, that's not to say that it won't. I
It
mean,
might
they're
possibly.
a lot of people are very interested in the quilts that go on tour, so, and having the quilts come to them, so, yeah.
Because they have been doing exhibitions of Quilt National elsewhere now,
Yes,
haven't
yeah.
they? I don't know how long they've been doing it.
It almost goes on tour for about 2 years. It's almost a
2
2-year
years.
cycle. Yeah, that ends up in France. I'm not going to claim to know what city in France that it goes
sure.
to, but because that's not, I haven't been a part of that yet. But
Yeah.
yeah, it tours all over the country, and I don't think any of the touring venues are large enough to house the whole collection, the whole Quilt National show. They can sort of elect a certain portion, like an A and a B or something like that, because none of them are quite as large as the Dairy Barn.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
70 or 80 quilts
it is about 79 quilts, I think, is what it ends up being. Yeah, it's exactly.
at Quilt National.
Yeah.
And of course, I suppose there's already in progress for next Quilt National, which will be next year.
Yeah, the
2015.
submissions are open right now, so you can go
Oh.
to our website and submit if you're a quilt maker.
What is the website?
Dairybarn.org will have the information on applying to the Quilt National
I see.
15. Yeah, there's a link on there to go to Slide Room.
So anyone out there who's a quilt artist,
Yeah,
modern quilt artist,
yeah, there's no traditional quilts in this show.
yeah, it's very interesting. You know, over the years, I thought at the beginning, my goodness,
Yeah,
how's that going to work? And having experienced quilts
Yeah.
on beds,
yeah, right. Yeah,
long ago, my stepfather did a lot of work out of doors over the years. He was a motor grader engineer, building dirt roads in Nevada when I was a little girl. And his mother had made him a wonderful quilt out of bits and pieces of old woolen pants
Right.
and jackets and coats and things like that. And she had embroidered his initials on this quilt so that nobody else could run off with it.
That's funny. Yes.
And that's a very different kind of quilt.
It is, but we do have some quilts and art we use too, so.
Yes,
it is
yes, some of the
something you
quilts
use.
that are actually used.
Yeah.
In fact, my mother-in-law gave me as a wedding present. My husband and I will be celebrating our 60th wedding anniversary this summer.
Congratulations. Wow.
And you know, it was quite a thing to get this quilt that had the birth squares. Each square was from a different state in the United States. So there were
Oh.
48 in those days. And so there were 48 squares. Each one had the name of a child born in 1930, like my husband. So
Aw.
really unusual,
That's
you know.
super. Yeah.
Well, you know, we're getting sort of toward the end of our time together, Courtney.
It went by that quickly?
Yes, we've been talking for quite a while.
Did we cover all the things that we wanted to
Well,
cover?
just about everything except we haven't had it. We must leave a little time
Okay.
for the performance art.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Tell us again where this is going to be and what you're going to do with the performance art.
The one in Chile?
The one in Chile, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so that's at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Santiago, Chile, if you want to go.
Great.
It'll be, let's see, I think the opening is June 26th. And it'll be up all summer long, so if you're not going to be there for the opening, you can stop by.
Anyone who
You're going to
happens
South
to be in
America?
Santiago, Chile this summer, look.
But, you can also go to my website and look at the video.
That's right. Courtney Kessel is our person, and you have been able to see her name on our platform there. That's Lois Whaley, and Courtney Kessel is the exhibit putter-upper at the Dairy Barn Arts Center.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Courtney,
Thank
for
you
being
so
our
much.
guest.
I appreciate your time and interest. Thank you.
This is Lois Whaley for Women Today and Yesterday.